Hi guys. So I'd forgotten how much fun it is to play a guitar that's just set up all in fifths. And I've not done this for about 25 years and I'm having an absolute blast with it. So I thought I'd try and give you a sense of what it's like to play a guitar that's kind of tuned like a violin or like a cello. What I've done as well is I've created a PDF to go with this, and I put a whole load of scale shapes and pentatonics, chord shapes and things in there. And I've also listed the string gauges I use, because you need to have a custom set of strings on your guitar in order to be able to play like this. So let me start by giving you some idea of the range that I've got available with a guitar tuned like this. And you have to forgive me because I've only been playing the guitar like this for about 3 days, so I'm going to make all kinds of mistakes, but who cares? Anyway, the top E, instead of a top E, I've got a G. So that's the G above the high E that you'd have on standard tuning. And the low note is an A flat or G sharp. Okay, so that's way down below your standard low E. So your low E actually is the first fret on the fifth string. Yeah, that plays an E, so that's the equivalent of an open string on standard tuning. Or if you play it on the sixth string, it's just there up on the 8th fret. Yeah, so there's my E. So I just played one position of E major, and just to give you some idea of what that actually, the range that I'm covering, so that's my open E, so that would be the note there, that's my lowest open string on standard tuning, and the last note there is actually the G sharp, so that would be just there. So in one position I'm covering all of that range, which is brilliant. Now going down, as I say, that's an E, which means D sharp, C sharp, B. So B would normally be the lowest string on a 7-string guitar. And then we've got A, an A flat or G sharp there. So I've got an extra minor third in the bass and the equivalent of an extra string available to me when I have the guitar tuned like this. And up on the top string, as I say, that's a G, which means, where is it? Just there, I think, is a D. There it is. There's a D. So that would normally be the highest note that I'd be able to reach on this, because it's standard 22 fret Les Paul. 24 fret would go to an E there, which I can reach. But on this guitar, without bending, the highest note I can get is an F. So that just gives you some idea of what you've got available to you when you tune like this. So I did a little bit of research on this tuning online. There are a few people out there who are playing with this. They tend to be more in the kind of the jazz domain. But what really surprises me is I've not found anyone playing metal on a guitar tune like this, because it really does lend itself to those kinds of, you know, those really rumbling bass notes. Let me see if I can demonstrate. So, because you've got that low A flat there, and things like power chords, you know, power chord, because the strings are tuned to fifths, is just a simple bar chord between two notes, and you can find octaves just like that, as easy as that. So you can play 2-octave power chords really straightforwardly, or you can come up with really kind of nice juicy riffs. And the fact that you tune to fifths gives you some great movement over the neck. I was playing a pentatonic there, so all of your scale shapes are really quite different, and I'll cover that in a little while. But let me switch off the distortion and let's have a look at some chords to start with. Okay, so I've put some really simple major and minor chords in the PDF, and they're very straightforward to play. So there's a major chord, for example. There's the minor chord. Different inversions. There's with my third in the root. A minor version of that as well, or with a fifth in the root, you get this kind of sound. And there's your minor version as as well. So all of these shapes I've put in the PDF. But what's really neat about this is the amount of movement you have and how you can move chords around the neck. It's really a feature of the fact that everything's tuned consistently. All of the strings are the same intervals, which means, you know, you can move the chord up and down like you can on a standard tuning, like standard bar chords. But you can also take them across. The same shape works across every set of strings. So you've got freedom in 2 dimensions, which is really quite fun with this. Now, chords, you can imagine there's the hundreds of thousands of chords that you can come up with in this tuning, just like there are in standard tuning. So maybe we'll cover some more of those in a later video. But I just wanted to give you a flavour of chords when playing this tuning. Okay, let's talk about scales, major and minor scales. Now in standard tuning, major and minor scales kind of fit 3 notes a string. With this tuning, they sit as 4 notes on a string, so there's a major scale. And actually they're really straightforward to memorise because they're so consistent in how they sit on the neck. So if we put a picture of those up, you can see they just sit in pairs of strings, or 6 of the 7 strings just sit in pairs of strings like that. So if I move on to the next position though, you can see the 7th, there's one more shape to memorise, and that, just like with standard tuning, like I pointed out in the deep dive series, you know, standard scales just sort of wrap around on themselves, and these scales do as well, but they're really kind of straightforward to play. So you can see in this particular position there is one string which has 4 whole steps in it, and then you start the same scale around again. And like I say, I've only been playing this for about 3 days, but it's amazing how quickly you can pick this stuff up as you're doing it. And the fact that there are 4 notes on a string is brilliant from a picking point of view, because every string is just down, up, down, up. So you don't have to figure out complicated ways of playing across 3 notes on a string and swapping directions when you're playing major and minor scales on this. And this would be perfect if my right hand had actually bloody worked. I'd be flying around on this neck if I was able to use my fingerstyle, but who knows, maybe one day I'll be able to do that again. Anyway, that's the major and minor scales. What about pentatonics? Well, for me, pentatonics are absolutely amazing on this. They just sit on the neck so well. Let me give you a sense of them. So if I take that as my root note, can you see how straightforwardly? And they're basically 5-string wrapping shape. Yeah, so you have 2 strings that look like that, 2 strings look like that, and then 1 string that looks like that, and then you wrap around again. And every position is based on that pattern as well, which is brilliant. And of course, there are 3 notes on a string, so you'll find you can do you've got all of the motor skills that you've probably already created when you're playing standard tunings that you can apply to pentatonic scales. So suddenly you've got all of this freedom over the pentatonic scale that, you know, you don't quite have when you've just got 2 notes of string. So it's brilliant. Okay, let's talk about the guitar setup, the tuning, the string gauges that I use. So what I did to set this guitar up is I started with a set of standard 10s. They're the strings I'm using for 4 of the 6 strings on the neck. And then I bought an 8 for the high E and a 60 for the low E. Now the low E is probably my least successful string, so I'll probably come back and find a heavier gauge that will fit this guitar. But that's what I've got on here today. In terms of tuning, I've tried to steal from existing knowledge basically when I'm setting this guitar up. So the high G, why did I pick that? Well, that's tuning straight off a 12-string guitar, and the string that I'm using is an 8, because very typically on a 12-string guitar you use an 8 for that high G that you have on there. So that's what I've got on the highest pitched string on this. Then below that I've got a C. And that C is 1/2 step above an open B from a standard set of guitar, a standard guitar tuning. So that I'm just using a standard B string in order to play this note. So that's C, and then below C is so it's G, C, F. So the F here is the pitch that's a whole step below an open G. So I'm just using an open G string here as well. So that's the F. Below that is B flat. So the B flat, the string that I'm using, or the gauge I'm using here, is basically an A string, and I'm just turning it up 1/2 step. Yeah. Below that is E flat. So that's a low E. I've just got a low E from a standard set of guitar strings, and I've turned it down 1/2 step. And then the bass string is an A flat. And I just looked for the fattest string that I could find online that I thought I'd probably get away with fitting on a standard guitar, because the real issue is whether it's going to fit through the tuning peg and whether it's going to fit down here. So I'll probably look for another string, because this is a bit sort of flappy and it loses tuning. So it needs to be something big and heavyweight. But that's how I've tuned the guitar. So I've forgotten how versatile this tuning is, which makes me amazed that it's not more popular. But actually that's a great thing from my way of thinking, because if you want to kind of step out in uncharted territory, this is a hell of a place to start. To kind of carve your own niche in. So I definitely recommend getting a guitar and setting it up like this and just seeing how it fits your playing style. And apart from anything else, it gives you an excuse to buy a new guitar, so what's not to love?